Are Romanians really protesting against an anti-free speech law? Thousands joined a protest in Romania last week, organized by far-right MEP Claudiu Terziu. Online, the protest was presented as a stand against a law allegedly designed to abolish free speech, with claims that the government could jail citizens for spreading hate online.
The European Union is also fact-checking you. Today, you heard that right. The European Union has started the construction on the Ministry of Truth. Thousands of Romanian patriots recently marched on the streets of Bucharest. They were protesting against a law that abolishes free speech. Obviously, the European Union passed this news through the Ministry of Truth, and as expected, they concluded that the several thousand protesters had no idea why they were in the streets. All of this analysis was done by the European Union's Ministry of Truth, without the law in question being cited or anyone analyzing its articles. Unfortunately for them, we will do exactly that. We will use the official journal where the laws of Romania are published, and the official website of the Romanian government, where the country's laws are found in digital format. The law in question, known as Vexla's Law, is a law that, according to the official justification for which the law was passed, aims to combat fake accounts that spread hate online. But, surprisingly, the law does not make a single reference to fake accounts. Instead, the law imposes penalties of up to 10 years in prison for the crime of opinion expressed online by people who have real and assumed accounts. The law establishes a 5-year prison sentence for any distribution or making available to the public, in any way, of materials considered fascist, racist, and xenophobic. The law proclaims that if the act was committed in the online environment, the guilty person will receive double the punishment. It should be noted that in Romanian legislation the 10-year sentence is reserved for those convicted of trafficking in weapons, drugs, or people. Therefore, in Romania, according to the new law, you can receive a similar punishment for a post on Facebook to someone who trafficked a truckload of cocaine. We should not be surprised that thousands took to the streets to protest, and that the European Union's Ministry of Truth was activated to silence their protest. We must keep in mind that the law does not propose any mechanism by which a prosecutor or judge could differentiate between a person who generated incriminated content or the person who passively distributed it on their own page. Also, the law does not say what it means under the law to be fascist, extremist, xenophobic, or racist. Practically, the law leaves the semantics to the interpretation of prosecutors and judges. Another controversial article is one that equates people who were officially convicted by the International Tribunal in Nuremberg with people who were part of the leadership of organizations today considered to be racist, fascist, xenophobic, even though these people were never convicted of anything. Therefore, the law establishes that the act of a person promoting, in public, the cult of persons guilty of having been part of the leadership of fascist, racist, or xenophobic organizations is punishable by imprisonment from 3 months to 3 years or a fine and the prohibition of certain rights. The law also requires that all statues, commemorative plaques, or street names related to these individuals be prohibited. Let's take a simple example that any Westerner can understand. 1. The law prohibits any person who has previously been part of a xenophobic or racist organization and prohibits any form of public homage to that person. 2. Vlad Dracu, Dracula's father, was part of the Order of the Dragons, an organization that wanted to eradicate Muslims from Europe. Today, such an organization would be considered xenophobic and racist. Therefore, 3. We must ban Vlad Dracul, demolish all his statues, and imprison all those who honor him. Another interesting example would be the national historian of Romania, Nicolae Iorga. In the 1800s, a series of anti-Semitic persecutions were unleashed in the Tsarist Empire. Several 100,000 Jews fled by transiting Romania semi-legally. A Jewish organization called the Universal Israeli Alliance began to make a series of threats against Romanian politicians, claiming that the Romanian state would have an obligation to grant citizenship, the right to buy land, and the right to vote to all these illegal immigrants, and that those who did not support this initiative were anti-Semitic. In this tense environment, the great historian, in 1895, founded a joking organization called the Universal Anti-Semitic Alliance that mocked all the demands of the Universal Israeli Alliance. Today, the law prohibits any form of public homage to those who were formerly part of anti-Semitic organizations and sentences those who do so to prison. So, is Nicolae Iorga banned today for the 1895 joke? Apparently yes, because the organization had the anti-Semitic name in the title. It doesn't matter that Iorga never slapped any Jew, or that he died before the start of World War II, the law makes no distinction. Likewise, we have dozens of cases of Romanian intellectuals who in certain situations expressed and acted against the Russian Empire, against the Austrian Empire, against the Kingdom of Hungary, or were critical of the Turks, Jews, or Greeks. The law does not open a discussion about their reasons, but instead prohibits and issues sentences of years in prison for those who have other opinions. The law also prohibits books and archival documents. The law prohibits bookstores, libraries, and archives from making available to the public any material that contains fascist, racist, or xenophobic ideas. Remember this: during the communist era, there was an identical law that led to the banning of 7,694 books, including works by Dostoevsky or Winston Churchill. The list was correct. If the book contained any racist or xenophobic remarks, it should have been banned. Today, the list would reach an impressive number of 12,000 titles. In the face of this tyrannical law, let's see how the European Union reacts to the legitimate protests of European citizens in Romania.
But the reality is more complex. Protesters were calling for the repeal of what they're calling the Wexler Law, which is actually aimed at combating extremism. The law proposed by MP Silviu Wexler bans the glorification of fascist figures and introduces prison terms for promoting anti-Semitism, racism, or xenophobia online. Terziu fears that the law will erase heroes and geniuses from Romania's national memory. By that, he's referring to iconic national figures such as the poet Mihai Eminescu. But some of Eminescu's writing include anti-Semitic and xenophobic passages. So is this law really a threat to the national memory of Romania?
So there is nothing in the law that bans such discussion.
The distribution or making available to the public, in any way, of fascist, legionary, racist and xenophobic materials constitutes a crime and is punishable by imprisonment from 1 to 5 years and the prohibition of certain rights, if the act provided for in paragraph 2 to the power of 1 is committed through an information system. The special limits of the punishment are increased by half. The act of promoting, in public, the cult of persons guilty of committing crimes of genocide against humanity and war, of persons who were part of the leadership of fascist, legionary, racist or xenophobic organizations, as well as the act of promoting, in public, fascist, legionary, racist or xenophobic ideas, conceptions or doctrines, within the meaning of Art. 2 letter A. is punishable by imprisonment from 3 months to 3 years or a fine and the prohibition of certain rights.
For the artistic use, the educational use, the use for this kind of public debates.
Fascist, legionary, racist or xenophobic materials mean images, text messages, audio-video content, books, articles, other documents and propaganda materials, as well as other such representations. D. Anti-Semitic materials are understood to mean images, text messages, audio-video content, books, articles, other documents and propaganda materials, as well as any other such representations, which transmit ideas, conceptions or doctrines that promote anti-Semitism.
The law also bans awarding public honors to war criminals or leaders of fascist organizations.
Article 12. It is prohibited to erect or maintain in public places, with the exception of museums, statues, statuary groups, commemorative plaques, relating to persons guilty of committing genocide, crimes against humanity and war crimes, as well as to persons who were part of the leadership of fascist, legionary, racist or xenophobic organizations, as well as to persons who were part of the leadership of fascist, legionary, racist or xenophobic organizations, as well as to persons who were part of the leadership of fascist, legionary, racist or xenophobic organizations.
Nevertheless, before its adoption last December, President Nico Jordan called for the law to be re-examined, citing vague wording and potential for abuse. His objections were rejected by Parliament and the Constitutional Court, sparking a national debate about freedom of speech.